Nestled along the banks of the Ohio River in the quiet beauty of Wayne County lies a town with a story as enduring as the hills that surround it, the town of Cerrito, West Virginia. Founded in 1857 with a vision of unity, progress, and freedom, Cerrito was more than just a settlement. It was a bold social experiment, carried forward by generations of proud, hardworking people. Through the decades, Cerrito has witnessed the tides of history, from early days of the Underground Railroad to the growth of the coal industry's boom to the quiet resilience of small-town life today. Each chapter has left its mark, not just in records and photographs, but in the spirit of its community. In this special interview, we sit down with local voices, storytellers, historians, and lifelong residents to explore the rich tapestry of Cerrito's past. We'll uncover the moments that shaped the town, the people who stood at its heart, and the legacy that continues to guide it forward. Join us now as we journey through time and memory, celebrating the proud heritage of Cerrito, West Virginia, a town built on purpose, preserved by pride, and remembered through stories.
Well, today's episode of Wondering About Cerrito Canova, we have a lifelong Cerrito resident and a gentleman who has devoted much of his adult life to public service here in Cerrito and Canova, Mr. Stanley Fink. Stanley, welcome for being here. We appreciate you taking part in this process. Could you tell us, I guess, Stanley, to start at the beginning, how did the Fink family land in Cerrito?
My grandmother lived on 3rd Street East. When my father came here to build the flood walls, he came from Logan, Ohio, here with a construction outfit to build the flood walls after the flood. He rented a place off of my grandmother, and he and Mom ended up getting married, and that's how my family got here.
So that would have been sometime between 1937 and 40 that your father moved
Right.
down from Ohio, and the Fink family has been a staple in our community since.
Right.
Stanley, speaking of your family, you had siblings, is that correct? You had 2 sisters?
Had Annette and Alice, and both of them are deceased.
Now let's look and talk a minute, Stan, about the early days in Cerrito, your earliest memories. And we know the town was much different in the 1940s and immediately following the war when you started in elementary school. But can you remember any businesses in the town at that time?
Oh yeah, things started to evolve into businesses coming in and locating in the town, and the schools changed radically. They really did. They built the first bunch of classrooms along as you go through the walkway there. The first ones that are on the left before you get to the main part. That was the first classrooms that was built. Okay, then after that, they built an annex to the main building on the back, and they put a study room or whatever in there. And Miss Barney, remember her?
Miss Eunice Barney?
Yep. Miss Eunice Barney had that class and everything back there. So the classes evolved until it burnt down. We had a person that took care of the cleaning of they called her a janitor. She and her husband were down stoking the furnace, and what happened was they got the ductwork too hot, and it caught fire underneath. You remember the stairway that went up in the middle of the school?
Yeah, we're talking now about the school building that burned on
Yes.
Valentine's Day in 1957, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the fire initiated under that stairway, and it was unnoticed for a little while because there was smoke, but they didn't know where it was coming from. When they finally did know where it was coming from, it had already gone into the attic. So
let's go back. You started elementary school in 1947, if I'm correct.
yes,
Do you recall who was the principal at the school then?
Josephine Brown.
And Stan, in drawing your attention to that time, Cerrito was known, I think, as most small towns were, to have a number of small businesses, or particularly grocery stores.
Oh yeah,
in
yes.
town. Do you recall roughly how many grocery stores were in Cerrito at the time?
Webb's up here was not a grocery store. They sold groceries, but it was, in small amounts. You go in there and get a loaf of bread and maybe a can of green beans or something. But it wasn't a grocery store. The first real grocery store we had was Copley's, and his brother was the meat cutter.
He's talking about Bob Copley and his brother Tom.
Yeah, and I worked there when I come out of the service as stock shelves, drive the truck to deliver groceries when they come in. I just do all.
Prior to Copley's having a full line of groceries, most of the stores in Cerrito were smaller businesses that I think, as you mentioned, the Webb's store, where you could pick up a few items.
Well, you had the Frasers out there at the on the corner of Main and D. Now they had a pretty good store, but nothing like Copley's had.
Well, can you give the viewers a picture of what a small neighborhood store was like compared to a bigger full-line grocery store like Copley's?
Well, the one up here on B Street, where you went in, you had canned goods down one side. There's all different canned goods. In the center, you had the baked goods, cakes and everything was in the center. Then on the other side, you had mostly pancakes and stuff, your different mixes that you had.
Boxed items.
Yeah. And then on the last side over, it was just a catch-all. And that was the grocery store then. And we used it a lot because to come all the way down here and to use these stores down here, when I lived there at 3rd Street, I could be up there at Webb's in no time.
So I guess back in that time period when a lot of people didn't have cars or only had one car, you were traveling on foot, and so those 3 blocks became important.
Right. But I don't know but 3 people that had more than one car. My dad, now he worked out of town. He was a construction worker, and they would be working sometimes halfway up the state. Well, he had to have the car to get up there. Mom didn't drive. She never did drive, and I was too young, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There was very, very few people in town that had more than 2 cars.
That would have been in the 1940s and probably through the 1950s.
Yeah.
A fair statement. And the other thing that we have heard is that Cerrito had an abundance of gasoline stations during those years.
Also, and we had one that was more than a gasoline station, that it was on the other side of the flood wall up there. He sold gas, but if you wanted to go up there late in the evening, you could buy a pint of moonshine for $25.
Well, I guess that was a fair price before the liquor store came.
Yeah. Yeah, and we, down here you had Ashton Oil there on 6th Street and 60. And at that time, they were full service. They had where you could get a grease job and so on and so forth. You had that big station there, and then you had the one up here above the flood wall, and you had McFann's. Now McFann's was a do-all. You could get a tire fixed, get a grease job, or whatever there.
Those were the days before to pump your own gas, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they were. Now, there was a Sunoco station down here at Route 60 in Maine, and that was Fields that owned that. Well, that was the first job I had, was washing cars and changing tires and just whatever. Russell Hutchison worked there as a grease monkey. Well, being a grease monkey he worked where that they did the grease jobs and the oil changes and anything, changing brake shoes, whatever. So he took care of that. I took care of the wash bay. And
now, about what years would that have been, Stanley? Were you in high school at that time?
Yeah.
So
I was in high. I was a junior.
So that would have been 1957, 1958.
Yeah. And but the Ashland station down there had two pits, and they did oil changes and everything there too.
So you've seen the evolution of gasoline stations going from full service
Oh, yeah.
mechanic work into today's pump your own gas
Yep.
and go to a dealership to get mechanical work done.
Now you just go in and pump your gas.
After you left Cerrito Elementary, you went to Cerrito Canova High School, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you graduated in 1959?
Yeah.
Now, while you were at CK, do you recall who the principal was?
Yeah, Tabor's who it was.
And that's, I think you were in a band. And do you recall the band director?
Oshel?
Charles Oshel.
Yes, sir.
And what instrument did you play?
Trumpet. Well, I played trumpet except for football season, and they didn't have a bass drummer, so they asked me if I would be the bass drummer.
You got traded, huh?
Yeah. His mother asked me, she said, when you're going down the field, rear back and just give it the switch hit, and everything. I said, you got it. So the next night, we had a home game. I kind of loosened it up a little bit where I could get my arms free a little bit. Here I go down through there, buddy, and I was reared back, and I was a switch hitting it and then going behind my back and everything. And I hear Rudy, go, Stanley, go! Those were things that happened back then where just everybody was out to have a good time. And his mother was, you haven't met anybody, you met his mother.
For the record, Stanley's pointing at Rick Griffith, whose mother, Rudy Griffith. I don't think your story shocks any of us here that she had that idea, Stanley, and it was one of many she had that put some life in Cerrito Canova.
Yeah. I tell you what, she went on some band trips with us. She was a stern person. She knew she wanted complete control, but she knew how to handle it with grace.
Following your high school graduation, how long was it before you joined the Navy?
4 weeks. I was a member of the Navy Reserve in Huntington, and the reason I did that was because I wanted rank when I went in. When I went in, I was a seaman first class. The day I went in, so
made things a bit easier for you.
Oh yes, and I got my choice of a ship a lot better too. I got the Chuck, the USS Chuck AO-100, and it was a tanker. We went from one end of the Mediterranean back and forth twice, and we stopped at every country. And when we got back, that's when they was having the problem down in Cuba. So they sent us to Cuba.
Stan, it had to be pretty thrilling for a young boy from Cerrito to be visiting countries in the Mediterranean, I would think.
Oh, Lord have mercy, yes. I've told my wife 50,000 times that there was, if I ever get the chance, I would like to take her to Barcelona, Spain. Until you have been to Barcelona, you haven't seen anything beautiful. When you come up out of the water, the Mediterranean, all three of the ships that came here came from there. And you go up that, and you go down through there. The park is in the center of the road, and then there's walkways on each other side. And it's a gorgeous place. You just have to be there you can't realize it me just talking. I can't do it justice. I love that place.
Probably had the thrill of crossing the Mediterranean, or the equator, didn't you?
Yes.
Was there a shipboard celebration for that?
Oh, yes. Now, they had a Parents' Day, and my dad and my mother and my two sisters came from here, and they drove down there, and we took a cruise. So my dad, when he hit the ship, I didn't see him. And I thought, well, where is he? So I asked Lieutenant, I said, have you seen my dad? He said, yeah, he's down in the engine room. I said, in the engine room? What's he doing in the engine room? He said, he's down there going through stuff. And next thing I knew, he was a gun turret up on the A1 deck. He was not hesitant about hitting every room, any space on that ship there was, and he loved it. He'd have made a good sailor.
Well, I'm sure his son was also. What was your occupational specialty in the military, Stan? Is that where you learned to weld?
Yes.
So,
yeah. I tell you what, when I come out of the service, I had welded some in there, and that's how I got into the Ashland vocational. So I come out of there, first class welder, went to INCO. They put me to work the day I walked in the place because I was all position welder. They put me on a lot of specialty jobs. Now the artwork, of course, up there, everybody knows that I welded all that and made it. The artwork is on the plaza up at Huntington.
You talk about the artwork that's, I think it's now on the Civic Arena Plaza, is that correct?
Yeah.
That was designed by a sculptor, and International Nickel provided the product, and
and
as an
the
employee,
welder.
they assigned you
Yep.
to do the specialty welding on that. Is
Yeah,
that
he
right?
the guy that did that, he was from Mississippi. That job was more than what people thought it was, because I had a little model about 9 inches tall that he had made himself, and he said, "I want this made."
How long did it take you to weld that?
It was 7 months and 1 week. There was a guy that helped me. His name was Werner Sarton. He retired when we was getting ready to put that into service. Came here back during the war, and they had some programs at Marshall he wanted, and that's how he got back here. I could take you up there and show you. Everybody says, "Man, they didn't even weld that." Yes, we did. I had to leave a joint of about 1/8 of an inch, and I had to fill it in with TIG welding. And so all that's TIG welded. Then when I got through, I laid a piece of sheet metal down, and I would grind on that sheet metal and ease over into that to get those real sharp corners.
The people in Cerrito and Canova certainly are proud of you for the work you did on that. It's excellent. And you spent your entire work career with Inco, is that right? How many years were you there?
39 years.
Well, let me drop you back a bit then, but before you started at Inco, when you were still in high school, and ask when you developed your interest in the volunteer fire department here in Cerrito.
Well, of course, I lived right here. I would walk down here, and they had a bench out there. Remember, some of the guys would be sitting there, and I getting to talk to them. And so one day I said, well, when I get old enough, I'd like to get it. They said, well, you can be a junior fireman. Talked to my dad, and Dad said, well, if you want to be a junior fireman, go ahead.
How old were you then?
14.
So
Yeah.
when you got out of the military, then did you come back and go assume your duties at the fire department here in town?
Johnny Robertson was the fire chief then. I just took the position of, I'll work with these guys over here, and you go to do what you want to.
In those early days at the fire department, Stan, particularly when you were a junior fireman, do you recall any of the men here in town that were volunteer firemen?
Well, there was Russell Hutchison.
Would Bill Lyons have been around then?
Yeah, Bill was around.
Thinking back again to those early days, what kind of equipment did the fire department have when you first joined?
The first, well, I guess you'd call it a fire truck, was a Jeep with a little pump on the front of it. It probably put out 50 gallon a minute. It had a trailer on the back that carried the hose and all that kind of stuff, and the lighters were on a rack on top of it. And it wasn't much. Then came along a 1952 Chevrolet. It was the berries for what we'd had. Every man over there, including the younger, knew how to operate everything on that thing. Of course, we couldn't drive it, but other than that, Jennings Gerald, he was running the pump. Over top of the pump was where you had a compartment that you kept your tools in, and you would pull that latch up, and Jennings tightening up 2 hoses to the outlets there on the side of the truck. And that compartment lid was up like that. And when that hit, it kaboom! I was coming around by Spears.
Talking about Roscoe Spears,
Yeah.
confectionery.
Yeah. When that went off, that truck, rocked like that. And that hit Jennings right square in the center of the head. Now, why he didn't have his helmet on, nobody knows to this day. But when it did, he just gave it one of these numbers, and down he went.
When the school burned in 1957, you were a sophomore, junior in high school.
Yeah.
Well, as a result of that fire, the town got a new elementary school. A little good came from it. Do you recall the Ferguson hardware fire?
Yes, it did.
So tell us about that one.
When we got the call that we had a fire there, when we started to attack it, we knew that he sold ammunition. And when we got inside, trying to hose down the inside of the building, the ammunition was back in the center part. Oh, we knew where it was real quick. It was ringing us, ricocheting off of the walls and everything else. Yeah, that was a building that we had. It's gone. They never rebuilt it.
Well, let's talk about one they did rebuild. How about the 1975 fire at the fire department?
That was caused because it was set from a guy that was working in the old dispatch. I was one of the second ones there when the alarm went off, the whistle. When it went off, I come running down here, and when I got right about where the front of the lodge is, I looked over and, wait a minute, the whole back end of that fire station was on fire. There was a tanker, you remember that tanker? That tanker was in that garage. So I ran around the building, took my foot, and it was, a roller door, and kicked one of those sections out there, reached in and unlocked it. That's how I got in there to get the truck out.
So you actually drove the tanker truck out of the burning building.
Yeah.
Now that fire department that burned in 1975 was located on B Street in the old City Hall building. It was part of that building, if I'm correct. And
Yeah.
Could you tell us what came about after that fire and how the new fire department came to be built?
I had a guy that I worked with who was the chief of the fire department at Campbell County. Darrell was his name. They had just built a new station. When we had that go wrong, he said, "I'll get you in touch with the guy that he'll get you a good station." Well, we had one problem. We had all these tile and everything sitting back here and everything, and we went to the tile company, and they said, "If you need that for a fire station, we'll move those tiles."
When you speak of tiles, you're talking about the circular concrete tiles that
Yeah.
were made at the Union Concrete and Pipe Company
Yeah.
here in Cerrito?
Yeah, those things are huge.
Yes, they were. And,
I mean, you didn't grab one and roll it, I'll guarantee you that. But anyhow, they came down and said, "Now, what do you need?" We told them what we wanted to do. They wrote us a letter and everything telling us to go ahead, and they would give us the property to put the station on.
Now, would that have been George Richmond at Union Concrete?
Yeah. I went to Milton, where a guy that I worked with, they had just built a new station. It's almost dead center of what this one is. And they told us who they bought the building off of, and we had a committee that me and Russell and we went to look at the station, and we decided that's what we want. And we went to the bank, and they loaned us the money. So that's how we got that fire station.
And just for clarification, when you say you fellows went to the bank, the volunteer fire department is not an arm of the city government. Is that correct?
No, I went to...
You were literally out on your own when you went down, and
Yes, sir.
had the note not been paid, it would have been your house.
Right. You remember the old ladder truck? Huntington was getting rid of that truck. This day was done. So I had a friend that worked up at Moses. I took an old GMC cab chassis, brought it down here, and Paul Black, who was a Huntington officer, he come down here of an evening with me, showing me how to hook the fifth wheel on there to mount that truck onto that old GMC cab chassis. And that's how we got that truck.
It sounds like during your lifetime, Stanley, or your tenure at the fire department, you went from having a small pump on a Jeep to antiquated equipment, to hand-me-down equipment, until by the time you retired from your fire service, the department was by then buying new equipment.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had some excellent people over there, the Clarksons and everything. I didn't have to ask for help. All I said was, "I'm going to do this," and here they come. When we built that extension on the old department back there, I say Mose was the mayor then. He come over and he said, "You boys want to do this, that, and the other?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay." And that was all it was said. Go to it. And he was always there for us. We went from nothing to what you see over there now.
And Stanley, it was about that time that you became involved in city government. Am I correct?
Oh yeah.
Could you tell us how that came to be?
Well, the way I got involved with that, well, Mose asked me if I would like to be on council because they had an opening. I said, "Yeah, I'd like to try that." he said okay, and told me when to start coming to meetings. Well, I hadn't been there but just a short time. I'd say maybe 2 years. The recorder left. So he said, would you take the recorder's job? I had seen how the others had to do, but I said, yeah, I'll take it. So he taught me how to be a recorder. I was a recorder for something like.
I believe you're here for 42 years, if my memory is correct.
I think it's 40 something. I think it was 40 something. Yeah, 42.
When you resigned, you were the longest serving municipal recorder in the state.
Yep. When I took over, there was an election just maybe a year after when I took over. So here I am, still wet behind the ears. Now I'm going to have to hold an election. I didn't know anything about ballots, nothing. I went to my buddy up at Milton, and he said, "Come on." Back then they didn't use voting machines. I hardly ever see a voting machine. It was, always ballots. I went up to West Huntington. They printed my ballots for me up there for my first election.
So what were your duties as recorder, Stan? The main things that you were responsible for here in Cerrito?
Well, when I took over as recorder, they didn't have recording machines like we have now. I mean, I had to write it in the best language I knew, and then transpond it into a legal document. My wife came in very good at that. She was a secretary, so she knew how all the forms had to be. I really, out of all the things I've done in this town, my tenure as recorder has been my most enjoyable.
During your time as the recorder here in Cerrito, the administration made a number of changes, and the city made significant progress, I guess, since the 1970s when you started as recorder. Can you talk a little bit about the city projects that have taken place during your time here?
We had the water project down over the hill here.
So you're talking about we had to, I guess during your time we went from well water to purchasing water.
So I had to go through all that.
You mentioned the old city hall. It was during your tenure here that the new city hall was built, correct?
Yes.
Could you tell us how that came to be?
It started was the city hall there. We were choked for room and everything else. We needed a mayor's office, and everything else. We decided that we needed a new city hall. Bill Mays got in on it, and he was helping us, with the design and everything else. That's how we ended up with this building here.
Yes, and this building is built. If my recollection is correct, there were tennis courts on this property.
Yes, it was.
Prior to that, so.
Yes, it was. There was two tennis courts here. We took and just graded that off over there, and they poured the foundation and they set the walls, and then come in and finished it off on the inside.
And this is the same property where it was a site of Fort Pierpont, the only Union fort in Wayne County. Is that correct? And
yep.
So you put it on a historical site.
Yeah.
Now, also during your time here, Stan, there was a decision made to pave all the alleys in Cerrito.
Did a lot of paving. There wasn't, when you went down one of the alleys here, you watch that we didn't have garbage trucks. We had dump trucks, and they would go along and pick those barrels up and throw them up in there. They would go down these alleys, and there'd be big rocks here and little rocks here, and here's that truck's going like it, and these guys trying to throw those. So it was rough. It was rough back then. It really was. It was rough.
During that same time frame, Stan, I think that the town council and the citizenry had a rather contentious debate about the liquor store. What's your recollection about that?
The liquor store. They was wanting to locate a liquor store down here on the corner of Route 60 and Main Street, and it was where the drugstore used to be, Flanagan's Drugs. It was not well received by the people in the town that there was going to be a liquor store in their town. But anyhow, it finally come to fruition that we had the liquor store on the corner there. Flanagan's Drugs was on the corner there, and it was just a slab, and there was in the back part of it toward the alley there was a barber shop but then they tore that down and put that Chinese restaurant in there. You remember that?
It was after the liquor store went out.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of things, on that corner during the time. There's been a lot of different.
That was an interesting corner during your lifetime, Stanley. You mentioned Flanagan's drugstore and Buck Combs barbershop. That building and tied together on Main Street where there was a restaurant there. Do you recall that?
Oh yeah, and
Dick Methick's.
Dick Methick's. All the people that worked in these plants around here, they ate their lunch there, and he had pretty good food. But I just liked the pinball machine myself.
From time to time, there was a doctor's office or two there on Main Street.
Yeah, there was quite so many. There was 2 filling stations on Route 60 there across from each other. You would think that, you wouldn't have that much business. But both those places did good business, didn't they? Sunoco and one was Exxon.
There on Main Street after you left the doctor's offices, there was a hardware store.
What has been here and the way it is now, you wouldn't recognize, as you went through that period of time, you wouldn't recognize.
It was a rather bustling midtown area there for a number of years. Just down the street from E.A. Cole and Son Hardware, there was the Cerrito Pool Room. To finish out the Main Street there, we were talking about after the hardware store and the pool room, there's also a cab stand and a grocery store.
When Mr. Radkins came here as the police officer, police chief, he spent more time in that pool over there than he did anything else. Oh, they'd get drunk in there, and that back of that thing was a war room. Remember when he'd walk and shake the change in his pocket? Oh Lord, I sitting here talking, I can think of so many things that I'd really forgotten. The things like Oscar, his son Fred lives over on the other side of town now. Fred. Cleo, his daughter, she went to school with me. You could write 10 books.
I don't want to leave Main Street in that section without asking you about the wooden bench that sat outside the pool room there that seemed to have a lineup on it each morning waiting on the door to open.
You remember the cab stand?
I do.
I never will forget. What was his name that owned that cab stand?
Leonard Hensley?
Yeah. He had just bought a new cab. It wasn't 3 weeks old. And we had a fire, and young Jennings Gerald was driving the 52 Chevrolet. There was 4 of us on the back of it. Well, you know what that did to the front. So we were going around this corner right here, and that new cab was sitting right there in front of the cab stand, and Jennings whipped around that corner, and there was 4 of us on the back of it, and it picked it up just like that, and it come down like that, and boom, right into that cab. And he walked out of that cab stand, and he said, "Oh, God." And he started crying. And Bill Lyons was on the truck. He was an officer in charge. And instead of him trying to find out, what really he could help, he jumped off the truck, went around the side that Jennings was driving, said, "Back that damn thing out of here. We got a fire to fight." And here this guy's cab was torn all to pieces.
I guess one of the bigger things that happened during your tenure here as a member of the city administration was the building of the Cerrito Plaza.
Yes.
And that was in 1976, 77?
Yes.
How did that come about?
That was a golf course when I was growing up. But we let him build the plaza over there.
And that was the anchor stores to that were Hart's and Big Bear at
Yes,
the beginning. Is that
Hearts
correct?
and Big Bear.
But there were a number of retail
Yes.
establishments there in on that property, and I guess that was a pretty good source of tax revenue for the town for a number
it was
of
a
years.
it was a big shot in the arm.
You know, Stan, also, I guess you were on the town council recorder when the elderly high-rise was built here in town. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a particular need for housing at that time, or?
Oh yeah, for the elderly especially.
You took over there, Stanley, what was an open field,
Right.
a pasture field, essentially.
Yeah.
And just in a few years, had the elderly high-rise over there, and followed that by placing the Wayne County or Cerrito-Canova Middle School on that property.
Yeah.
And I suppose there was some help with that, since Mayor Napier was also superintendent of schools for a period.
Yeah.
And so your administration continued to develop that entire area with the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah.
And the walking track and the ball field over there, and later the amphitheater.
Yes. And the amphitheater was used more years ago than it is now. That the churches, they used to go over and hold, I guess, cantatas.
Yes, Stan, you also served on the cemetery board for a number of years.
I'm still on it.
Still on the Crescent Hill Cemetery board, and
Yeah, we've had a good tenure there. When we had to put some new reservoirs up there, we let them take the dirt and go over there in the cemetery, and we had a gully there. Well, they put that dirt in there and smoothed it all out, and my son's got one of those lots. He's buried up there.
yes, during your time here, you also served as the town's representative on the County Economic Development Authority.
Oh Lord, did I? Yeah, I went out to Wayne, and we did a lot of things out there, and I represented the town on the Economic Development Group.
Stan, looking back now that you're fully retired, I should say almost fully retired. Because
Almost,
still
yeah.
doing a few things around town, but you said earlier your proudest accomplishment was your time as a recorder here.
Yes.
Would you talk just a bit what it has meant to you to raise your family here in Cerrito?
The reason that I didn't leave Cerrito is because this town here has so many assets about living here. You can't beat Doug. The way he cuts grass,
Doug Adkins, the water superintendent.
Yeah, and we just have good employees, and we have good citizens.
Stanley, thanks for spending time with us here today and telling your story.
I enjoyed it tremendously.
Well, we will undoubtedly have you back for another appearance on Wondering About Cerrito-Canova.